Hello, and thanks for checking out Missed Meals and Cold Coffee. I'm Chef Lethal, and I've had some mild success on the internet as a live streamer, so I thought I'd bring those talents and my own life experiences to chat with you about parenthood. I'll cover topics ranging from infertility to the adoption process, while hopefully having some fun in the meantime. Now, before we get into the episode, my legal team has prepared the following disclaimer.
This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Any medical advice or information given by the host, Chef Lethal, or any of his guests should not be taken seriously or acted upon without the express consent of an actual medical professional. Please call your doctor if you experience an erection lasting longer than 4 hours, as this may be an unintended side effect. Please follow Chef Lethal on Twitter at Chef Lethal Plays and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Chef Lethal Plays.
Now, with that out of the way, on to the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Missed Meals and Cold Coffee. This is show number 4, and today we're talking about adoption. I am, of course, your host, Chef Lethal. That should be no surprise. Thank you, big thanks to the legal team for that disclaimer. They get it right every single time. It's amazing. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I'm in a great mood today, and I'm going to tell you why. You see, today is Thursday, the 17th of December, 2020, and I just found out that the podcast is on Spotify. So, got to do a little housekeeping here up at the front of the show. We kind of do that every show now, but I feel like it's important to get some of the stuff out of the way. So, first of all, this is the first show of the new year. So, here's to 2021. Cheers. Hopefully, it is better than 2020, although that is a very, very low hurdle to make it over, to jump over, or whatever you do to hurdles. So amazing. Another year behind us. So cool. It's weird to be saying that in the middle of December, but it is what it is. Things that haven't just updated are my social pages. You should go check those out. I'm on Instagram, Twitter. You can go on Twitch, which I am live right now. These shows I record live, for the most part, all of them so far have been live. Not for the most part. I'm saying all of them have been live, recorded. There will be probably a few that I can't record live or just don't have the time to, but for the most part, I try to do it. There's no schedule to them. I am also, the podcast has been picked up by Spotify and Google Podcasts and some other distribution centers, for lack of a better term. So that's pretty cool. So if you're listening to this, it's probably on Spotify, which is amazing. I can go on Spotify and look up my podcast. That's pretty neat. So this is the problem with pre-recording this thing is like I recorded the first 3 already, and I'm like, I kept saying, hopefully this gets put on Spotify and hopefully this, hopefully that. Well, the first episode was published yesterday and I submitted for distribution this morning and it's been distributed. So yay. So that's kind of awkward. I'll have to put in the show notes for the past episodes that everything's available on Spotify now. Although I'm probably not going to do that. We all know me. And if you don't know me, I tend to say things and then often don't do them. So some more housekeeping in a bit of humility or humble something or other. My wife, Mrs. Lethal, actually listened to the first episode today, and I didn't think I would be, but I was very nervous when she told me that because I care very much about what she thinks. And she said it was great. And, there were a few things that she gave me as notes, but one thing she definitely told me was that the first episode left her wanting more. So she went on to my Twitch page and found my past broadcasts, which I haven't deleted yet, and started listening to, or watching, I guess, rather, the second show about infertility. And she tells me, she goes, "Chef, you have all the dates wrong." They are so wrong. And I said, well, I get I feel like part of that's important, but part of it is just the story of it. Like, this is the stuff that we went through. Okay, I tried to block it out, so my dates are all screwed up. I apologize. Okay, but it is what it is, and it's fine. That show has been published. I can't go back, but I can tell you now, 2 weeks later, that the dates are all screwed up, but the story still remains. That we had some issues and things happened. So that's that. Today we're talking about adoption. I got to get into some caveats. There's always caveats, because I feel like if I don't throw out the caveats up front, then I'm backtracking the whole time, or I fear getting comments of people like, well, blah blah blah, you didn't say this, or that didn't happen to me. But the problem, not the really problem, but the thing about parenting and children and just life in general, I mean, really anything, is everyone's different, right? So everybody's story is different. And, my adoption story isn't going to be the same as somebody else's adoption story. And my experience certainly isn't going to be the same experience as other people. But one of the goals I have is just to teach you, the viewer slash listener, about my experience in hopes that it is at least somewhat adjacent to someone or can at least help you understand more of the realm of what it is to be a parent or go through this process. So that's kind of that caveat. So this story that I'm going to tell, I'm going to be finishing up my adoption story, not my adoption story because I'm not adopted, but the kids that I purchased from the internet from Russia. No, just kidding. From up north. By up north, I'm going to stop talking. Chef, get it together, man. But anyway, so my story is going to be completely different from everybody else's. My belief in parenting and how we choose or wanted to raise our kids and how that comes to fruition. Obviously, that's how we do it. How you do it might be completely different. And to tail end that, I gotta say, judgment-free zone here, guys. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it all on the table here, so to speak. I'm gonna leave it all on the mic, and that's one thing that I want to do for this podcast, especially. I don't really want to feel censored, so that's why I do this. I do the recordings mostly when the kids are in their quiet time. So like after school, we send them to the room with the door shut for a few hours to just decompress and get away from us. It does great for for everybody's mental health. It's very important for us, but I want to be free. I want to be able to tell the story and say what I want to say and not feel like I have to hold anything back, because I feel like things get missed when you start holding things back. And I don't want to do that. I want everything to be out there and completely honest and open. So anything I say, you're not allowed to judge me for. And anything you comment to me, if you have a question or a concern or something you want me to cover on the show, I'm not going to judge you, okay? Because parenting is hard, okay? Going through this stuff is hard. And the last thing I want to do is judge anybody for anything, really. But I also want to be open and honest. So if you submit a question to me, if you say, Chef, can you please address this, or I was wondering about this, I'll be happy to. I won't even say your name if you don't want me to. I'll keep it however you want. But I just want to put that out there. So I'm going to say some things that maybe you don't agree with, but you can't judge me because this is how I feel and this is how our life is turning out. So bing, bang, boom, done. Okay, good. Caveats over. Let's move in. Other caveats. My wife and I are husband and wife. I'm going to be referring to husband and wife. So and so, whatever. Maybe not. That caveat's probably not as important for this particular show number, but in the future it will be. Anyway, if you remember, last week, show number 3, I kind of gave the overview of the foster world and the adoption world as I understand it. And at the end of the show, I gave most of our adoption story. I want to finish that story because it gets bananas, okay? And this is so originally in my original plan for the show, when I was first hashing out ideas, I said, you know what I want to do? I want to make this show, and I've got this list of ideas, and I've just hammered out 18, boom, 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 boom. It was rapid fire. It was amazing. And 2 of the shows were, one was the joys of adoption, and the next one was going to be the struggles. And I was like, man, the joys might be a little challenging to make a feature-length show, so I might smoosh it together with the struggles, because the struggles, admittedly, are probably closer to reality, and make for better content, and we can have a full-length show. So before I dive into that, I do want to quickly say hello to Rapak, who's in Twitch chat right now. Hello, Rapak. Thank you so much for being a loyal viewer. Really appreciate that, my man. So getting back into the story, where we left off was we were going, like, the whole meeting process with the kids, which was around this time. It's so crazy. Like, just 4 years ago, in this exact time frame, I was freaking out about this whole thing. So it's crazy. So we met the lady who was giving her kids up for adoption. We're gonna call her BM for Biomom. So we met BM at dinner, right? And she said, do you want to come meet the kids? We said, cool. So we go meet the kids, and it was really cool. Like, it was very emotional. The people from the adoption agency were there, and they were taking video, and we were crying, and the kids were excited, and it was wild. It was absolutely wild. We found out that she let the kids watch our video that we submitted as part of like our sales process to sell ourselves to BM regarding choosing us for the adoption. And these kids had never had a father, right? So they were watching this video and were already calling me dad in the video. Like, that's my dad. That's going to be my dad. Talk about pressure. So I think we may have even found that out that night, that they had watched it, which we thought was absurdly weird. But then they were already thinking like, wow, that's going to be my dad. Crazy. So that was Wednesday night. And I had mentioned that driving there, it was dark. It was around this time of year. I mean, it was this time of year. So it was dark at 4 in the afternoon. But we got up there probably 6 or 6:30. I don't remember exactly. And we were there for a few hours, but it was dark. Like, okay, it was dark. And we were driving, we drove over there and we're like, man, okay, this neighborhood's a little sketchy. It's not a great looking neighborhood, but whatever, it's fine. So then of course we get offered to take the kids home that evening. We did not. We signed all the paperwork that we had to sign, and we got out of there and we drove home, and we had a lot to think about on the drive home. So if we're looking at the time frame of right now, I believe that was, I'm going to get all my dates wrong, and Mrs. Lethal is going to come in and get me all flustered. Speaking of flustered, Twisted DJ 94 on Twitch rating me with a party of 6. Now that is a party that I would want to be in. Twisted DJ, thank you so very much for that support. Welcome, Raiders. I am recording a podcast that you can find on Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, called Missed Meals and Cold Coffee. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to jump right back in. Just going over my adoption, finishing up my adoption story, and then kind of getting into some of the struggles and joys that we've experienced since adopting our 2 kids. So we met, I'm going to say, we're going to call it the 9th. If we're looking at this year's calendar, the 2020 calendar, December 9th, we met them. No, I'm going to stop doing that because I'm already screwing it up, and I can hear Mrs. Lethal in my head going, nope. So I'm not going to do that. So it was around this time, whatever. So we drive home, and it's crazy. So then we had arranged through the contracts to come back on Saturday morning and take the kids home. Now I do know that date because it's a date that we put on our calendar, and we being Mrs. Lethal and I have unofficially deemed that day, quote unquote, bring home day, where we previously would get drunk, wildly drunk. So the 22nd is when we brought them home. So I think 4 years ago that was a Saturday. And so we drive up, and as we're getting closer to the house, we realize this isn't just not a nice neighborhood. This is a bad neighborhood. Like, this is not a place that you would want to raise any children. Pretty sure we saw a drug deal happen in the broad daylight. It was like noon, 11 a.m. So it was wild. So we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to get these kids and get out of here. This is crazy. So we get the kids, so the whole thing is just so surreal to me. Just looking back at it, it's crazy. And in the future, so one extra step I have to take here is there is a possibility that at some point in the future, my children will listen to this. I certainly hope not, but they might listen to this. And to that I say, this is what happened and this is how we felt. You can't judge us. This is a judgment-free zone. You can't judge us now to how we felt then. So some additional notes that we found out about BM, anti-vaxxer, and believed in like holistic medicine, quote unquote. So if you had a headache, she would put iodine in your tea or something, and she'd make the kid drink that if they had a headache or if their throat was sore or something like that. She had only given them Motrin once, and that was because she had to take Mini Lethal number 1, the oldest, to the hospital, to the doctor for something. Okay, so immediately, like, problem, because we are not anti-vaxxers. There's absolutely no reason for that. So we go to pick them up, and Mini Lethal number 2 has a UTI, a 3-year-old with a UTI. I don't recall ever having a UTI, but I do understand that they're more common in women and ladies. And apparently they hurt really bad. So Mini Lethal 2 has a UTI. Mini Lethal 1 is 5 at this point, and everything is new. Like, this is bizarre for everyone. I have a sedan. Like, I don't even really have a big car. And the car was just jam packed with them. Never had kids in our car. And all the stuff that they wanted to bring, and meant, not even just their own physical baggage, but the emotional baggage. Like, the whole thing is crazy. So the drive to the place, to that house, was about an hour and a half, bordering maybe 2 hours is too generous. About an hour and a half. Keep in mind, Mini Lethal number 2, UTI. Anti-vaxxer, doesn't believe in medicine, BM. I will never forget this. This has been ingrained into my brain. I might forget the dates or the timeline of our infertility. I might not remember the exact date that we first met the children, but I will remember the drive home, because I was on a stretch of Florida's Turnpike that did not have a rest stop for 30 miles, legitimately 30 miles, with Mini Lethal number 2 screaming in the back seat, screaming, "I want my mommy. I have to go to the bathroom. It hurts. I want my mommy. I want my mommy." Screaming. And Mrs. Lethal and I, I'm white knuckled, driving as fast as I think I can get away with on the turnpike now, and we're staring at each other, like, soundlessly speaking through our eyes, saying, "What have we done?" Because holy crap! Screaming. Our son, apparently they weren't raised with any manners, so he had a runny nose as well, and so Mrs. Lethal, for the sake of syllables, I'm going to go with Ellen J. It's easier to say. Ellen J is my wife's stream alias, one of her many, but Ellen J. So Ellen J handed back a tissue for the boy to wipe his nose and kind of clean himself up, and he just threw it back at her, like, through the car, like, "Okay, I'm done. Here you go." And she was like, "Hell no, you didn't." So that was where we started. That was the starting point. We never had kids, and this is where we're starting. This is the drive home. And so we get home now. Leading up to the day, obviously, we had people come over. We had friends help us get the house ready. We had Christmas gifts. We had our Christmas tree up. Everything was ready for the kids, right? So it was like we were set. For one small sort of exception, where we didn't have their beds yet, so we had to kind of improvise. But I'm not even going to get into that. That's not too terribly important. But so we were actually kind of so despite the fact that we were horrified driving down home, we were still kind of excited, like, get them home and show them the new home, and show them, they have a dog now, and they've got 3 cats, and, like, this is your home and this is your room. They never had their own room before. They lived in, like, this, I guess a 2-bedroom, to call it a shanty is kind of generous, but it wasn't a great situation. And coming to our house, we have a pretty decent house. We do well for ourselves. So to say this is your home, this is where you live now, we were kind of excited about that. Like, man, they're gonna die over this. Like, this is crazy. This is such an upgrade for them. So it was very quickly, I understood, and if anyone out there is thinking about or plans on adopting older children, or even fostering older children, one thing you have to understand is kids don't want stuff. It may seem like they do, but at the end of the day, kids want their mommy. They don't care where they're living, and we didn't know that. So we get home and we were so excited to, we're filming, here I'm dating myself, but recording, on our phones, them coming in, and it was just like, it was as much as they felt like they were walking into a strange place as we felt as though strangers were walking into our home. Um, it was, I mean, it was so crazy. We're like, this is your room, and this is your stuff, and this is your bathroom, and this is your, and it was just wasn't clicking to them. I mean, this is brand new to them. You know, they didn't know, but we were kind of given the expectation up front that they'd been talked to about this, and they were ready and they were excited. And when we got them here, it did not seem like that was the case at all. It seemed like major hostility. And I get it, you know, they were kids, 3 and 5, and you're going into a completely different situation. You won't have your mommy, you know, you're expected to call this new person mommy, even though again they were briefed on it by their mother. So excuse me, by their BM. I'm gonna get that absolutely right, because their mother is Mrs. Lethal 100%. So for weeks, months, weeks at least, we just felt like we had strangers living in our house. It was so weird. Like, we would run to go into our bedroom, and we had to set some boundaries, but you know, through the infertility process or just trying to have kids in general, you know, we talk about, you know, what are our beliefs? How do we want to raise our children? What do we want to do? What do we want to do about television? What do we want to do about bedtime? What do we want to do about this? And a lot of that had to go out the window, but a lot of it you have to compromise. We had to compromise on, because we were all just in complete shell shock. There's no really other way. It felt like a war zone at times. I know that's very dramatic, and I've never been in battle, you know, whatever. But in the metaphorical sense, it just felt like, you know, a mortar went off, you know, 20 feet away, and our ears are ringing and we can't see straight and we don't know what's happening. That's what it felt like most days. And it was crazy. But one thing we did have is the rule that you are not allowed in our bedroom. Absolutely not. Don't even think about it. There was one time they breached that because they had a nightmare. I don't think they had a nightmare, but maybe they did, because they were in a strange home with strange noises outside, not drug deals. So you know, you got to change things, because you got to be a little bit softer with them. We had to be a little bit softer with them, and if you're adopting an infant, you know, obviously that's going to be a little different. But the weird thing is, you know, like adopting a kid who has memories and knows things and can talk. That was one good thing, I will say. I'll get to that. You know what? I'm gonna save that, because I actually have that bulleted out later. But one thing about adopting older children is it doesn't happen that often. So people would try to reassure us and say, "Oh, well, you can try this, or you can do this." And it didn't work for us, because those people adopted babies. It's different when you adopt a baby, because you don't have that thing talking at you and calling you a liar and saying they hate your cats and that they hope that the cat gets out in the street and gets hit by a car. You don't get that with a you know, a little baby. You get goo goo gaga. You don't get, you know, why are you lying to me? Which we got a lot of, by the way. That was another struggle. But we did have people say, you know, for the first year, like, this is actual advice that we got that we did not follow, and I'm glad we didn't. But, you know, for the first year, just kind of let them do them, or for the first 6 months, just let them be, you know, let them figure things out, and you know, kind of parent with a soft touch. No, you don't come into my home and tell me that you hope my cat gets hit by a car and expect me to just be hands off, like, oh, it's okay, honey, we love you. No. No way, Homie. No. I just tried to say Jose and Homie at the same time, and it came out Homie, which I can't even make a joke about that. That's just a dumb thing I said. So that was most of it. So, you know, obviously those feelings go away after a while. But it was just so crazy that this happened, you know, and it comes around, and the boy now loves the cats and would never intentionally hurt them. He's obsessed with them. At one point he wanted to marry one of them, but which, you know, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, so there was this whole thing, and I'm glad it worked out, and it was definitely a trying time. Oh, so going back a little bit about the room, our bedroom being kind of a safe space, we would take turns, Mrs. Lethal and I just said I would call her Ellen J for the rest of the show, and I continue to call her Mrs. Lethal, whatever. We would take turns just running away into the room, shutting the door, and just being silent, because we were overwhelmed. Everything was overwhelming. it was absolutely nuts. So that's one, that these are all things that we could have never even expected in 100 years. No one could have told us that this was going to happen, because this doesn't happen. The lawyers and the adoption people said this never happens. We never get a 3 and a 5-year-old like this, who are wanting to be rehomed, for lack of a better term. I know they use that term for animals, but potato potato. We've got these kids, and the BM wants them out by Christmas. She wants them in the home by Christmas. Like, you have 2 weeks basically. It doesn't happen that way. So that was that. Another thing that we had to take into consideration is we could only go off of the paperwork that we were given. So we don't really know their full medical histories. So when it comes to physicals or any sort of tests or anything, when you go to the doctor, they always ask you, do you have a history of heart disease, blood pressure, this, that. We don't really know, because they don't know, like they being BM isn't sure who the dad is. So we know kind of her end of it if she's told us everything, but then we don't know the male side of it, So I had to take them for an allergy test. I mean, that doesn't really run hereditary, but I don't know if diabetes runs in their family, in their blood. It kind of runs in mine, but I don't know about them. What about cancer? Did anyone have cancer? I have no idea. These things, do they have what is it, like addiction issues? I have no idea. I don't know any of these things. So gotta kind of find it. Another consideration is that, especially with getting older kids, but obviously this wouldn't be such an issue with getting newborns or infants or whatever, but their old habits can be really hard to break. These kids came to us, particularly the 5-year-old, because he could talk. The 3-year-old couldn't really. We could kind of make out the gist of what she was trying to say. But the 5-year-old, he could talk perfectly fine. And he had no manners. So we had to teach them manners. We had to teach them the way that we do things and the way that respectable humans do things. One thing that was kind of funny is we pray before every meal, or at least dinners, and we started to get them to do that, but he would never say amen. And we just didn't understand it. And finally we were like, yo, dude, what's going on? Why, you say amen at the end of your prayer. That's what you say. And he started to cry, and he said, no, we were told that amen is a bad word. Now, I'm all for religious freedom. I don't expect everyone to have the same beliefs as me. Fine, I get it. That's absolutely no problem with me. I get it. But to tell a kid that the word amen is a bad word, come on. I don't care how atheist you are, or agnostic, or anti-Christian, or whatever. To tell someone amen is a bad word is just straight up stupid. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. I said this was a judgment-free zone. I'm judging that. That's stupid. It's a word. People say it all the time. I aced that test. Amen. Atheists say amen. Like, come on, people, give me a break. Another thing to consider is they came from a home of anti-vaxxing. So as a 5-year-old, we had to start the vaccination process, which was really cool. Like, hey, welcome to your new home. You hate us. We don't even know anything about you. You've threatened to let our cats out and get them killed. By the way, we have to take you to the doctor in 2 weeks to get shots. A lot of them. I think the first round was like 5 shots he had to get. And like, great. Just pile it on. Just here's a Triceratops mountain of doo-doo. Let's just keep piling it on, because there isn't enough working against us right now. And then that, I mean, I don't know if you know, but shots go like they go in sets. So it was like, in 3 months, 6 months or whatever, you got to go back for round 2, and it's another 4 shots, another 5 shots or something. And then in another year, you got to go back and get boosters. And it's like, cool, welcome to the family. We're going to stick needles into you until, whatever, you look like an addict. That's a terrible thing to say, but whatever. I said it, you can't take it back now. So yeah, that's another thing that we had to contend with. We had to contend with, the daughter having a UTI. The first night that we had them, we took them to the freaking late night pediatric, like basically urgent care, and we had to get them antibiotics. We're like, okay, our new son has a cold, and our new daughter has a UTI, screaming bloody murder all the time. So yeah, we got all that fixed. And it was like, you're new to the family, so here we go. We're getting it all out right at the beginning. It was really like a foreshadow kind of situation going on there. Another thing to consider, and we had this thought that it might happen, and we know other people that have adopted, and it happened there too. But the genetic bond is a real thing, and I'll get into this later, probably like closer to episode 10 about genetic bonding, but it's a real thing and it happens. And when you just get a kid, it's not there. They don't have your DNA. I don't look at them and go, you have my eyes, or you have my nose, or whatever. You have my toe, because I've got a very like the lethal toes are infamous in our neck of the woods. It sounds terrible. Anyway, it's not there. There's no other way I can put it. You have to learn to love these kids, and sometimes it could be. And again, this is coming from a place of going into a very difficult situation with these two kids. And I'm looking around. I think I didn't feel love for them for a while. You have to learn it. I had to learn it. Because it's just, especially because it was so difficult. But if it was a newborn, I'm sure it would be it might be easier because they're not talking back or saying they hate you and all this stuff. But that was hard. That was really, really hard. And I didn't expect to throw them in the car and be like, oh man, my heart is so full. I'm so full of love right now. But it was a very interesting situation. This is a long show, isn't it? Oh boy. Last thing I want to talk about considerations, at least, kind of the struggle part still. Like, I would say this would be the last end of the struggle part. It's kind of a funny-ish story. It's not really funny, haha, but it's just kind of funny the way it played out for me. So I self-diagnosed myself with post-adoption depression. It's a real thing. I looked it up extensively while I was going through it, and I just had this like overwhelming sense of dread and failure and worry. And part of that was anxiety too, but I definitely felt like I had nights where I would just go into the room and just bawl my eyes out and just didn't know what to do, felt completely helpless. And like Ellen J, Mrs. Lethal is absolutely amazing in basically everything. I mean, I'm not even just saying that because she might listen to this, but she's an exceptional support person. Not even just my wife. Like, if she were just my friend, like, she is an excellent friend. But the fact that she's my best friend, I get the added benefit that she's also my wife. So, and she was as supportive as possible. But there were days I just couldn't handle it, and I felt really bad for her because she's going through the same thing, right? She's having to take care of these two strangers, and she's got me basically incapacitated with anxiety and depression. So she had 3 children essentially to take care of. And I have these 2 different, I say dietary flips. If I'm in more of a depression mode, I eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. Like, I'll eat myself sick. But if I'm suffering from like extreme anxiety, I don't eat, and I don't even feel starving. Like, I just won't eat. So I would just go through periods where she had to tell me to eat. Like, you gotta eat. Like, I'm not hungry. No, you have to eat. You physically need to eat. And I'd eat like a protein bar and be like, okay, I'm fine. It's like, no, you have to eat. She'd force me to eat. She's force feeding me basically. But kind of the funny-ish part of the story that I wanted to tell is one of these nights I was having a night. Like, I couldn't do it. So I called my mom, and God bless her, my mom's not with us any longer. So this might be a little difficult for me to get through, but I got to tell the story because it's kind of funny. So I was 30, 30 years old when we adopted the kids, if my math is right, or 29, I think, something like that. I don't even know. I don't care. Whatever. It was 4 years ago. Let's just call it, I was 30. I don't care. And I called my mom, and I was talking about the kids, and she was excited, and I had a breakdown on the phone with her, and I just started weeping, bawling my eyes out on the phone. And I was just like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I just feel like everything can go wrong, and I'm not going to do the right thing. And we're going to ruin these kids' lives, and just felt this crushing weight of everything on me. And she had no idea how to react. She had no idea how to react. I don't think I cried very much as a child. And it wasn't until recently that I started to really just accept my emotions. Even then, I still don't all the time, but I've learned to accept that crying is normal, and having anxiety is relatively normal, and bottling it up is not normal. And so I just was just weeping and bawling my eyes out, and she just froze. She had no idea what to do, what to say. She'd never had to comfort her adult son, who's going through a complete mental breakdown. So I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm, weeping. And she was like, it's okay, Chef, you're going to be fine. No, it's going to be okay. Like saying the most vanilla words of not, and I know they came from a great place, and she might be looking down on me right now and scowling at me the way only Mama Lethal can. But, it was funny to look back on. I think I even came in and told my wife, I said, my mom has no idea what to do with a weeping 30-year-old man. But so I can look back at least on that and laugh that she tried so bad. I could tell she wanted to help, but I mean, to be honest, there was nothing that she could have said or done that would have made me feel better. It's just a funny story now, so that kind of makes me feel better. So thanks, Mom. That's pretty funny. So I just spent 30 minutes talking about the struggles that we had, most of the struggles. I didn't even get into like a lot of the minutia. Gotta save content for the future, guys. Come on. Like I have a whole list. I have a short list of things that they cried about in the first months, like ridiculous things. I can't even spoil any of that because those are good. But I want to get into some more of the nicer parts of it and kind of end on a higher note, because I do feel like a lot of what I've been covering here today has been, I don't want to say negative, but it's all true. Like I wish I was making some of this stuff up, but nothing has been exaggerated as far as I remember in the story. And I have omitted plenty, trust me. But some of the good things. So one good thing that we can say is that we saved these kids from an unfavorable situation, an unfavorable circumstance. They may not realize it, and they may not have cared at the time, and they may never know, maybe until they listen to this show, which they shouldn't. They should go to their room. They're grounded. But we can look back and say, okay, BM was right. This was not an environment to raise children in. Especially the boy, Mini Lethal 1, is extraordinarily bright. Like, he is so smart. To have him living in a situation where he wouldn't be able to maybe go to a good school and really experience his full potential. We can look back and say we helped with that, and that can just be in general through adoption. Maybe somebody's adopting a kid and they're being born into that situation, or they're being born into a single parent home, which we have so much respect for single parent homes. We had a hard enough time, we still do have a hard enough time doing it, and there's two of us. Couldn't imagine with just one. Like, forget it. Unbelievable. But you could be saving a kid from that situation. I mean, it sucks to say it because many people will disagree with me, but again, judgment free zone. This is like Planet Fitness. You can't judge me for this, but it is just a more stable, in my opinion, a more stable environment to raise a kid or kids in a 2-parent home. I don't care if your parents are both men, both women, both whatevers. It doesn't matter. At least, like, if one of them has to go to, there's just more flexibility. There's more stability. I don't know. You can judge me on that if you want, but you're not allowed to because it's judgment free zone. But you can feel free to leave a comment send me a DM on Twitter. My DMs are wide open. If you want to have that discussion, feel free. I can talk about it in a future episode. I can have you on. We can talk about it. We can do stuff. It's the beauty about having our own show. One of the other good things about adoption is you finally get your own kids. If you've struggled with infertility, as we did, knowing that your end goal has been met can be a thing. Like, okay, we struggled with this for so long, and now we don't have to struggle with it because we have kids now. Cool. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that when you go through infertility like we did, I mentioned in the last show, or 2 shows ago, episode 2, that every month we would just have this crushing sadness because Shark Week would come and we would realize we're not pregnant, and what we were promised would work didn't work again, and we'd go through 5 days or 4 days or whatever of just complete sadness and being crushed. Well, you don't have that anymore because the goal has been met, so we didn't have to worry about super ovulation and doing all those things. It was just, we have kids now, cool. We don't have to have that monthly crushing depression and sadness. We just have that every single day with these 2 kids that say they want to hate us. And then one final kind of joyful thing about it is if you have parents that are on your back about having kids, but you're going through infertility and they can't stand it, hey, adopt some, because then they're instantly grandparents. Yeah, no, I had to put something else positive. I couldn't just have like 2 things, right? So it's good for those in-laws or the parents that just want their kids to have kids so badly it's driving them crazy. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe you're going through, like for me, we were going through infertility and my mother-in-law desperately wanted grandchildren because Mrs. Lethal is an only child. I am not. My parents already had 3 grandchildren. They didn't need any more. My parents wanted me to be happy, and so did Mrs. Lethal's parents. Obviously wanted us to be happy. But, just like certain women get that itch to be a mom, like they get that mom itch, that baby fever or whatever, older parents get the itch to be grandparents. They want to dote on small children. And if you're going through stuff, or if it's just taking time, they can be hounding you. You can get a phone call. I think Mrs. Lethal tries to talk to her mom once or twice a week, at least. Imagine having that conversation. I'm not saying this happened, but imagine having that conversation every week. And every week, your mom is like, okay, so when are you pregnant yet? When are you having kids? I see stories all the time. But you can finally say, shut up. You have 2 grandchildren now. Come and take them. So that can be another stress reliever. Another thing I want to say really quick, I didn't even put this in the notes, but I just want to point this out, that the old stigma of adoption, I feel like, is completely gone in today's society. There was the old trope in old sitcoms, particularly where like rival siblings or whatever would threaten, like, oh, didn't mom tell you you're adopted? And they use it like kind of like a slur. But that's all gone. Like, obviously for us it's a little different. The kids knew they were being adopted from the very beginning, like from the beginning of the whole process, so we couldn't hide it. It's not like we could hide it from them anyway. But even if you're adopting a newborn, I would say it's important to let them know, maybe not right away. And people can obviously disagree with me on this because I don't have an adopted newborn, but I feel like they would need to know at some point when they can comprehend it, because they're going to be thinking about it, especially if they look different than you. Like if we had adopted a black baby, a newborn, and then 7 years go down the road and the kids looking at us and looking at themselves like, one of these doesn't belong, then that conversation's overdue. But that's just my opinion. I can't speak intelligently on that, but obviously people would have to use their own judgment. But that old stigma of like, oh, you're adopted, I think that's wrong. And it also depends on how you frame it to the kids. We frame it to them as you got adopted, like, congratulations, we picked you and you're super lucky because we're awesome people. And we're a lot of fun, and I'm a chef, so there you go. And Mrs. Lethal is like aspiring baker at this point. Like, it's amazing. But we've got a good home, and we pick them, and it's all about how you frame it. We get an extra celebration day. We get I I saw there was some recent controversy about celebrating like Gotcha Day. I think because the connotation, I hate that this is even a thing, but I think the connotation is like gotcha, like you stole them or something. We call it Take Home Day because that was even before any of this supposed controversy about calling it Gotcha Day came about that we're aware of. But we call it Take Home Day because that's the day we took them home. No, that's not. We have Bring Home Day. Whatever. We have Bring Home Day, which is the 22nd, where Mrs. Lethal and I get blindly drunk, and remember the day is BK. BK is before kids. And then we have our Family Day. I think we just call it Family Day at this point. And that's in April when we actually had our court case, and it was official. They officially became lethal. And we were able to put in, and did we get their, I think their birth certificates were able to be applied for at that point. But anyway, this is all different. Anyway, so in closing, I know a lot of this show today seemed pretty negative, but what I always want to be is honest. I'm always honest anyway, almost to a fault, but I always wanted to be honest, particularly with the show. It doesn't serve me any good to sit here and lie to you or to fluff or to try to censor myself. So just being honest. And if my honesty helps somebody, then my job here is done. Obviously, this is just a hobby for me. I'm not looking to make millions of dollars, but if I made $1 million doing this, then I would be okay with that. And again, to reiterate, everyone's different. Everyone's story is different. My adoption is going to be so much different than your adoption if you're adopting, or your friend's adoption, or whoever's adoption. They're all going to be a little different. And they're all going to be special or something. I don't know. But certainly it all comes with its own set of rules and regulations. There's open adoptions where like the birth mother wants to be involved, and I can get into our situation with that. I haven't written that down, but this show has gone on. My throat is going on fire right now. You might be able to hear it. So I do have to, I'm not used to talking this much, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy. But maybe in a future episode, I might talk about that. Just different adoption options, or I don't know, maybe I'll have to bake that into. That's not enough content for a full show, but okay, I am ending the show here because I've gone on. My throat is sore. I have a beverage here that I need to drink. I will stay on the stream just a little bit longer if somebody's lurking and wants to chat for a few minutes. So thank you so much for listening. I do want to give a quick plug to all of my socials. I am at Chef Lethal Plays. If you just search in Chef Lethal Plays, honestly, on Google, you'll probably find me all the places I need to be found or want to be found. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I have a custom URL. If you went to, it's youtube.com/c/Chef Lethal Plays. It goes right to my channel page. I'm on Ko-fi.com/Chef Lethal. The show is now on Spotify, which is really cool. Anchor.fm, all of the things. So very excited. I'm still very happy to do this show. I hope you're enjoying it. So want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Missed Meals and Cold Coffee. You got to join me next week because I'm going to be talking about the beginning of our journey going through pregnancy, because spoiler alert, we didn't just adopt 2 kids. So until next time, this is Chef Lethal signing off, wishing you a full plate and a fresh hot coffee.